OverDrive, off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app, your home smart speaker. Up on TSN 4. Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan. Still talking Leafs Bruins on a Friday. No recap of the season. No looking ahead to the offseason.
Better than the alternative, I'll tell you that.
It certainly is. They keep playing.
Did you get any congratulations text for not going into the building and wondering about your future, what that might look like? Because, man, that was a hot topic last night.
It was quite the topic last night. Yeah, there were a lot of people buzzing. I did get a lot of pats on the back. Congratulations, as if I factored into the game last night. I told you, and I actually appreciate a lot of people that were writing this in. It was my daughter's birthday last night, yesterday. The only reason I wasn't there, if the Leafs go on a cup run here, she has to win the Conn Smythe. She gets the Conn Smythe. If they win tomorrow night, go on some miraculous run. Because if it weren't for her, I would have been there last night, and guess what would have happened?
They would have lost.
No, they would have won 2-1. They would have won 2-1, and I finally would have seen them actually win a hockey game because you called it. You said at some point they have to win on home ice.
Exactly.
They have to win on home ice.
Exactly. And I think that they understood the how it was going to happen last night. The last two games, it was like they're not going to cheat. They're not going to, magically create offense, which we've seen in the past. And they're like, nah, that didn't work. Like the right commitment level was there, and hopefully your skill guys can take over and win you the hockey game. My fear is, and I got to be careful with my thoughts because I lie around and think about stuff all day, is that it took them 8 years to figure this out. And it could be too little too late. Like they could walk in there tomorrow. It's like, yeah, we found this magical recipe. We understand what it takes now. And if they don't get it done, it's all for naught. So that's the pessimistic, Leaf side of it where you're like, man, that seems like they really kind of like William Nylander played a great game last night. He was physical. He was on the puck, scored some massive goals. It's almost like they figured out this magic recipe, but it's all for naught if they don't close it out tomorrow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, ultimately, you got to close now. I mean, we talked about it after they lost Game 4, and they're down 3-1, and let's call it what it was, and it was an accurate, natural assessment and feeling that they were in a really bad place. Dark place. The fan base was bent out of shape. Matthews was sick, and then it turns out he was hurt. Samsonov was in the crossfires. There was a lot going on at that point. The front page of the Sun was going nuts. Everyone had a different viewpoint, ourselves included. And, we threw out the hypothetical. What would you prefer? If they're going to lose anyway, would you prefer they just lose Game 5 so it's over with? And I said at the time, yes. I think you have two options. You storm back and win the series and immediately give Leaf fans something that they will thoroughly enjoy and reference for a long time because of who they're playing. Right? You're down 3-1. It's always the shoes on the other foot, generally, like what happened in Montreal in the bubble. They were up 3-1 on the Habs. Habs came back. They haven't beaten the Bruins in a playoff series since 1959. All these different things are going up against them. And if you're going to lose, then I guess rip the Band-Aid off. What I will say is the last two games have been a lot of fun. Like high intensity. These are not barn burner games. If you're an objective fan watching, this is not like the 85 Oilers.
Yeah, it's low event.
It's very low event.
Tight checking.
But it's tight checking, and it's really intense, and it's nerve-wracking if you're a fan of the Leafs or the Bruins, and I'll give them credit because they did not roll over. And what they've done the last two games is it's been very physical on both sides, blocked a ton of shots, and it's got like a 99 Leafs run vibe to it where I don't know if you guys can recall that. They could not score, yet it felt like they won 1-0 or 2-1 every game. And it was just hit everything in sight, block every shot you can. Stumpy Thomas will get some bounce or some heroic shot off, that will win them a game, and all of a sudden they're alive and they survive and they're moving on. And that's kind of what's happened the last two games is they've won 2-1, 2-1. Been the same game. 2-1, 2-1, 0 for 3 on the power play last night, 0 for 3 on the power play in Game 5. Like, it's the same thing. Yet, Joseph Woll's making one more stop than the other guy. Someone's showing up with heroic moments like Willie last night, Matthew Nyes the game before that. And, Leaf fans, now you go back into a very familiar vibe and familiar situation tomorrow night.
But it was, you gave yourself a chance.
Exactly.
That's not like, again, we could have started the show a lot different today. We'll see how it unfolds to see if they can finish the job. There's heat on both sides, but for different reasons. I said this on the cause show just before I came in. Correct me if I'm wrong, but just I think at the start of the series, we all kind of believed if we would have said this is going to be Game 7 and it's going to go to 7 games, I think we all could have probably agreed on that. The way it's happened has been crazy, though. That's the difference. And the angst on both fan bases now. It's not just one. Because if it was just punch, counter, punch, like hold set, all of a sudden it's, whoever has home ice kind of has been winning or whatever. Yeah. That hasn't been the case. But if you looked at the start of the series, I think we all agreed this was going to go, if not the distance.
Real close to it, yeah.
But that comment you made about... And I said it last night about Marchand's comment. I think it's almost it's borderline a panicky comment. The amount of interviews we've all watched in pro sports, when somebody comes with if you had told us at the beginning of the season, we had that kind of means there's trouble in the horizon because they're in a bit of a bad spot whenever somebody tosses that out there. Because they don't say that if everything's cooking smoothly. Do you know what I mean? It's usually coming under duress when somebody says, if you had told us at the beginning of the season, and Marchand tossed that out there. That was one thing I picked up in the post-game interviews. I heard that, and I'm like, people only say that when there's trouble brewing. Yeah. So the Leafs have to just recognize that. They don't have a lot cooking. We always talk about what other teams are doing to the Maple Leafs and how quality of defense they're playing. The Maple Leafs did a hell of a job last night. And I thought about the fans. Like, when you're playing the game, you go underground, you park your car, you go up an alley. You don't get a total sense of what's going on and how passionate the fan base is. And I know people outside the market think everyone in Toronto is crazy. They're just dying for something to cheer for and some success. And they went into that building. If every game they played like that, and I mentioned the last game, you have to do that to enable yourself a chance to win. That's the bare minimum. That's the standard in the playoffs where you might not get it done. You might get beat by a Pastrnak or a Swayman or a power play, or Charlie McAvoy might beat you and beat you 1-0. But what they did for 60 minutes last night, that is the bare minimum to give yourself a chance to win. And they pulled it off. And the fans that were in the building, if there was 6 games like that and they lost last night, they would say, you know what? They threw everything at them. That's all they want to see, man. That's right. All they want to see. They were happy last night, and they got their flowers walking out of the building because they ultimately pulled it off. But if they just work like that, that's the commitment level and all the things. And as I mentioned off the top, my fear is that they finally got it, and they go into Boston and they can't pull it out. And the positive is they've done this without their best player.
Yeah, which is, again, I don't know what's going to happen with Matthews. He skated today. Keefe said it was progression. I'm not sure what that means. I'm not embracing the idea that he's going to play tomorrow night, but anything's possible. Yet, again, the blueprint is there. Like, these are really low event, low scoring games where there's not a lot of ice, and there's a ton of block shots. I think the Leafs had like 27 block shots or something last night. It's really physical in this series. And I think you go in tomorrow night expecting the exact same thing. It's likely a 2-1 game. It might be a race to 3. Maybe it's a race to 3. Even with Matthews, I think that's the case. And maybe that's the lesson. With or without Matthews, the core 4 or not the core 4, it doesn't matter. It's the Maple Leafs, and the team has to find a way to bandy together and go out there and find a way to win. Doesn't matter how pretty it is. Doesn't matter how it looks. It doesn't matter who it is. Because we started with Samsonov in net, and Matthews was the man. And now Wall's in net, and Matthews not playing, and they're still alive. And, ultimately what happened in Game 5, what happened in Game 6, awesome. A lot of fun if you're a Leaf fans. A lot of big moments for certain players. But it's all going to be irrelevant if you lose in Game 7. It's the same thing like 2013. What do we remember? Up 4-1 with 11 minutes to go. What do we remember in 18? Right? I would say the same thing about Joseph Wall and what's facing him. Kid's been phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. But you got to be even better tomorrow night. Like, tomorrow night is where you're really going to face the pressure, and I think it will say a lot about him, a lot about Swayman. Swayman has no history in this situation. He played Game 7 last year. How'd it go? right? He gave up the OT winner. So it's not like this guy's been around for 10 years on the other side of the rink and won 2 Vezinas and 2 Cups.
Yeah, it's not Bobrovsky.
He's not facing Bobrovsky or Vasilevsky or anything like that. Swayman's in a very similar situation. But James Reimer stood on his head in 2013, Game 5, Game 6. What do we remember? Flopping around in Game 7. Freddie Anderson, Game 5 and Game 6, they needed wins. He was great. What do we remember? 18, they were up 5-4, whatever, going into the third period. Freddie
was a
melted.
gas can.
He melted in the third period. That's what you're going to remember is what happens tomorrow night. And what they've done here, the Leafs, is given themselves an opportunity to make it feel different. And you mentioned Marchand. I heard him. I was watching him post-game. And he was trying to psych himself up and psych the team up and be optimistic. You know, this is great. Game 7, this is where heroes are made. This is where if you're a kid, you dream of this opportunity, which is probably the right approach. But I also thought he was reaching in some areas. And I will say, Jim Montgomery last night, why don't we play this audio? Because we saw it. We saw it at a Claude Julien 10 years ago. Bruce Cassidy never broke a sweat. Like, I remember in 18-19 after the Leafs, you know, they were going back to Boston for Game 7. He's like, Leafs Bruins, Game 7, we'll see you there. Yeah. Montgomery does not have that vibe going right now.
He's got a chip on his shoulder.
He's got a chip on his shoulder. He's shook. He's nervous. Here's what the head coach of the Bruins said about their performance last night and David Pasternak's role in Game 7 in particular.
Your best players need to be your best players this time of year. I think the effort is tremendous. They need to come through with some big-time plays and big-time moments. I think Marchand has done that in the series. Boston needs to step up.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I don't.
Straight. That's a straight.
He's
comment,
right, though,
man.
right,
like,
Noodles? He's right, but you don't see that a lot.
No, you don't. But it's. He's shooting from the hip. I was thinking about it. Like, if you look at this series, you've had the Matthews game, you've had the Marchand game, you've had the Nylander game. Mm-hmm. Now, Boston's looking for a Pastrnak game. I think maybe you look for, you know, either a Wall game or a Marner game or something like that. Like, that's kind of what you circle around it. But it hasn't. Pasta's been. He's got 2 goals, but he hasn't been a threat. Like last night, he looked nervous and bumbling with the puck and turning it over again. Like I don't know what's up with him, but he doesn't look good. But
I think he could have phrased it. Now that I'm older and I've dealt with my life coach and the way he words things, he could have put it like this. I believe in David Pastrnak, and when the chips are down, he'll be our best player on Saturday night because I believe in him, and he's going to get
that.
I know.
Did not do that.
But listen, I'm not.
Not
done.
everything has to be phrased like a life coach, though, either.
Like, the life coach? No, everything has to be.
I'm telling you.
I know, but like
we got to fill. I'll ask him when I see him on Monday. But
Please
he could have
do.
said, I believe that this guy's going to be the guy to get it done on Saturday night. Because if I was past that, I'd go up to him and say, I could have said to those cameras that you're a dum-dum for putting Grzelcyk in and changing the lineup after Game 4, you bozo, and you got to call me out. Is that how we want to play this game? You want to act like a jerk on the bench and do stupid things. I can get that microphone and start calling you whatever I want. You want to play that game? Let's play it.
Do you think the life coach would support that type of mentality?
I'm not sure. Maybe he wouldn't like that either. I'm just saying
he would.
It's tit for tat. So you want to play that game. The players could have easily said, I have no idea what Monty's doing changing the lineup after we just took 2 in Toronto. That's ridiculous. Mm-hmm. And Monty's got to step up. So there's just different ways now that I'm dealing and looking at things from a different perspective. Right. There's different ways to do business.
Stan the caddy. Stan the caddy is telling you.
I disagree
exactly
with the life coach. You know, sometimes the life coach is
I didn't say
for
that
you,
he
it's
thought
not
like
for
that.
everybody else. But
all I'm saying, Noodles, is there's different ways to kill a cat, right? He could have said, I fully expect Pasta to be the best player on Saturday night. Instead, he made the point with his, he leaned down there with his bald hair and he goes, Pasta's got to be better. It's just like, you want to make that statement?
Right. Well, he does. I mean, you know what? I kind of respect it. He does.
I respect it too, but I think there's different ways. And at the end of the day, it's the same thing. They're a little bit panicky. They're shook a little bit, and they have flashbacks from last year. They're like, God, if we do this again, like that's not happened a lot in sports.
Well, yeah. I mean, here's here's the reality of the histories of both teams, and specifically Leafs Bruins, but also the Bruins a year ago where they choked away 3-1. And if they do it again this year, they will become the first team in NHL, NBA, or Major League Baseball history to do that. No team in NHL, NBA, MLB history have choked away 3-1 leads in back-to-back years. So that's what they're facing. That's the pressure in their market.
Right.
Jim Montgomery has not won a playoff series in Boston, right? He doesn't have a rich history of winning playoff series like Claude Julien did in 13, like Bruce Cassidy has. So, yes, he's dealing with something very different here. But if it weren't the Leafs and their history and who they are, and specifically the Leafs versus the Bruins, because we saw it in 13, we saw it in 18, we saw it in 19, I think the majority of people in Toronto and Boston, and certainly objective viewers, would say the Leafs have got this. Like the Bruins are clearly going to be gripping their sticks. The Bruins are clearly starting to unravel here. The way they started last night, they did the same thing in Game 5. Like
right.
they were held to one shot in the first period. Like the Leafs came out flying last night. They came out flying in Game 5. I remember hearing that coming out of Montreal and in the bubble. It was like they knew once they pushed it to 7, there was no way the Leafs were going to beat them. And I think Tampa's said that again through the media, off the record. In other words, when the Leafs have been in this situation, the other teams are like, "I know we got them. I know we got them." And you would hope the Leafs, if there's one thing they've learned over the years, is to have that type of dogged mentality. Go in with uber confidence, respect your opponent, play your game, but go in there and think, we're winning this game. We got these guys.
It's in their head, Brian.
We got these guys. You just got to go out and
play. They just
did
it 2 games in a row. There should be an understanding, guys. If we continue to do that, and maybe our power play, if they keep putting those same guys out in the power play, I'll lose my mind on sports.
I don't see how it's going to change now.
Well,
why do that? Just do something different. I don't care if you have to hurt someone's feelings. If this show was a clown show, do you think J-Mac would say, "You 3 keep doing it, it's a clown show"? He wouldn't.
I hope not. That 4-minute power play was one of the worst.
Dude, they didn't get a shot.
I've ever seen. Yeah, it was truly horrendous.
It was bad. Night. But you know what, though?
But they won.
Exactly. Like I would look at it this way. You create a competition between the first and the second power play and go, okay, second power play is going out first. See if they can get it done. Mm-hmm. And if they don't, then you make the first power play hungry. You can tweak it a little bit. But let's see. Matthews may play tomorrow. That might open up a trigger man. Obviously, it looks different with Austin Matthews there. But you have won the last 2 games. The power play might be the difference tomorrow if you get an opportunity. Now, the penalties have been lean. What was it again last night? Like,
not many.
Noodles, I would do
high
one
stick
thing.
that drew blood.
I would do one thing, and you guys might disagree with this, because he's been a part of the units that have been going out there. I'm going to come with the heat here, and it's open for debate, okay? I'm Sheldon Keefe. I sit down with Mitch Marner in my office, and I say, what do you want this to look like? Because you've been the power play master your whole career. Your whole point system has thrived on the power play. You're the best playmaker. What do you want to see happen here? What kind of setup do you want? And whatever he says, you put it out there. Because that guy knows how to work the power play. He's been a part of not good, because they all haven't been good. But that's a big boy conversation, and that's the real deal, Holyfield. And you just say, what do you want to do here? What should we do?
See, I look at it in a similar way, but I'm going to the other guy. I'm going to 88 and saying, you're the man now. Like, if Matthews isn't here, I'm sorry, Willie's the man. Like, Willie has proven it this year. He proved it last night. That's a life coach. My life coach.
That is coming off the top rope to my comments.
Says, actually, step aside. I'm going to William Nylander and saying, you're the guy who can rip something home. Mitch, I agree with your assessment of playmaking. He does not score on the power play. He doesn't score on the power play.
Look, it's very simple,
Willie
guys. It's very simple. You put William Nylander on the half wall, okay? You put John Tavares in the slot, and he can interchange on the far post and go out to the front of the net, and Mitch Marner's on the goal line. How many down low attempts? Mitch Marner's so good at taking the puck to the net and trying to stuff play or either getting it to the guy in the slot. Just work it down low, and if they collapse, you get it to the point and shoot the puck. I'll drive down to Boston, and I'll run the PP meeting, and I'll be like
Guy Boucher to figure it out. I mean, every time they pan to the bench,
I'll do a Ricky Lee and just say, guys, the videotape's in the machine if you want to go look at it.
Yeah, but you know what it is, though? Like, we can draw up plays all we want. You know what the problem they do really have is they're not getting set up. They can't get set up. Boston's been really good in the neutral zone. They've been really good holding the line. And any type of bobbled puck, they're on them with numbers. And to me, Boston has been very, very aggressive. So it comes back to, you're right, like Nylander, Marner. It's not how they set up and everybody, hey, John, pop into the slot and I'm going to do this. It's about how quick you can move the puck and dissect. We were talking about the Oilers' power play being so proactive and McDavid, circling the wagons, doing all of that type of stuff. What they need to do, because there's enough skill out there, is use your skill. Take what's given. And if there's a hole, find it. Mitch Marner will find a hole. William Nylander will find a hole. And if they don't, they'll create it. But you got to get in, and you got to get some semblance of what are we going to do here?
You're right.
When
Boston's
you
been
got to
on
get
Don't
it
set
in.
up.
When you got to
Do
get
not
in.
To set up.
This is where I'm at my limits with the back pass, because it's like you're blowing 25 seconds trying to do this neutral zone thing, and it's not. I don't know. I think you got to sit down. You got to sit down with a couple of them and say, what do we need to do here?
Well,
because it's just you can't close it out if they don't get one tomorrow night. They can't.
I 100% agree. I hate the back pass, but the back pass works on entries. So I asked the coach about a back pass a while ago because it was bothering me. I was the same thing. I'm like, you're 8 feet away from the blue line. Now you're firing it back to your blue line with a guy with speed. And they said basically the entry should be you kick it back and then you overload one side. You 2-on-1 one side that you get in. It's a clean entry. But Johnny pointed out, and I don't disagree with him, who's been skating it in over the time. It's been Matthews for the most part, or it's been Willie when Willie was at the top of his game. Mm-hmm. And it's easy in Edmonton because 97 just skates it in. McKinnon just skates it in because they're rockets shot out of a cannon. But if you don't have that blow-away speed, you have to do something. I'd much rather just go 5-man, pop it in, either chip to space and recover, whatever. But you are seeing that drop pass, and it drives people nuts. Believe me, I'm
it
with
doesn't
you.
work. I mean, I understand the reasoning that it has during the regular season. It's not right now because Boston's clogging, the neutral zone, the blue line, and then they're forcing like Tyler Bertuzzi to make a great play on the sideboard with pressure, and the power play it's just been a wild scene. Yet they've been killing penalties, the last couple of games. They haven't had a ton of opportunities, Boston, in terms of, their own power play. But the Leafs are not giving up anything on the kill, which is significant. Something had to give there.
Sorry to interrupt, Brian. I think a part of that is the discipline of the Leafs. Because you're not giving Boston 5 power plays. You've given them 1 the last 2 games.
Yeah, they've really cooled it down significantly.
So, listen, you can go whistle to whistle, but the stupid penalties aren't there. Yeah. It's not the hero penalty. It's not there. And you know what? You can tread right up to the line. And there's been penalties that haven't been called on both sides, but that's fine. If that's what the refs are laying out there for the standard, so be it.
You'll take
Play right up to the line. You'll take it all day,
if you're
all
the
day
Leafs,
long.
You're praying the whistle goes away. You'd sign off on 0-0 power, 5-on-5 the whole night. Because 5-on-5, the Leafs have been the better team throughout 6 games. They feel very comfortable 5-on-5. And it was just an electric vibe down there. I wish I was there. I got to be honest. I was at the studio, and people are interacting, and a lot of people are texting me and sending me notes and, hey, let's see what happens. And of course they win. They would have won even if I was in the building. But it did seem like it was a truly electric atmosphere down there. And Sheldon Keefe said after the game, like on the ice, behind a bench, like you could barely hear yourself. And I thought Joe Bowen was great last night. That was the one benefit I had. I could hear Bonesy and Ralphie in their call, and specifically on Jay's show, I was there with Frankie last night and MJ, and when they were playing the highlights, they actually played Bonesy's calls.
How was the chair?
What's that?
Were you okay in the chair last night?
I was in the chair. It's a struggle,
was
man.
your boiler hanging?
Yeah, like I need Spanx or something if I'm going in there. Like I need a full mummy tuck, and then I just need to wear the suit and sit down and don't move, and it's all good. But
I always worry,
too. It was good to be in there with the boys last night.
I didn't bring it up yesterday. If you wear tight pants, Like you got stuff on display too, right? Like it's
a scene in there, man.
Special.
It's a scene. It's a cool vibe. It's a great set. They've got an unreal set.
It's
there.
awesome, but you got to be mindful when you sit down that things aren't riding up and like it just. I always kind of do the pull down tuck type, untuck type of thing because you want to make sure that you're not exposing yourself too much.
Well, even exactly like if you get the dress shirt where the shirts divide and the boilers out, like it just, and you don't know because you're engaged in the conversation, and then someone snaps a pic and sends it anyway.
Yeah,
let's hear the Joe Bowen call last night. This was William Nylander's 2-0 goal, the breakaway late in the game.
Cleared by Nylander, up ahead for Nyes, to Nylander, breakaway, game on his stick, scores! Willie Nylander makes it 2-0. We're going to Boston again, buddy. This time we're going to finish the job.
You want to talk about a guy that can capture the moment, man? That's
unreal.
I had a friend of mine from Carolina. Like he's originally from Michigan, but he just I heard that call from Joe Bowen. Like that is the stuff of legends.
Yeah.
Just out of the blue, text me. Like that's the real deal Holyfield right there.
Oh, it's setting a scene, man. It's a beautiful thing, and I know like radio is it's the theater of the mind, and you rely on Bonesy and Ralphie to really generate the energy and feed off the crowd and let you know vicariously through them what it's like in the building. And if you're driving around and listening to that, you're coming out of your seat, man. You're honking the horn down the 401, the Parkway, the QEW, whatever it is. It was just an incredible call. And Willie, that was a William Nylander signature evening. I mean, earlier in the period, Tavares was in alone, he missed the net. Domi was in alone, he missed the net. Like that was another sign of the Bruins. They started cheating a bit in the third. We didn't see that the previous 5 games. Like they gave up 3 clear-cut breakaways in the third period, and the Leafs should have closed it prior to it being on the stick of Nylander. But once Willie got in, you could just sense it. Like that looked like the Derby. I mean, that was a horse coming right down Broadway, and there was no way he was going to miss, and he didn't. And it was just an awesome, awesome call, awesome goal, awesome night. All right, Mike Johnson will join us. We'll look back on last night, start looking ahead to tomorrow night. Who's got the most pressure on them? Leafs, Bruins, which players in particular? What did he make of the post-game commentary from both coaches, some of the star players? Johnny coming up. We got Vancouver, Nashville tonight, Dallas, Vegas tonight. The Jays are back in action. There's a lot going on. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on the TSN app. Overdrive continues, brought to you by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Our buddy Hal Gill coming up, Game 6 in Nashville tonight. He's also a former Bruin and a former Maple Leaf, so get his take on the Leaf-Bruins series, what he can expect tomorrow night. There's a lot going on in the NBA, Major League Baseball, Stanley Cup playoffs, and our boy MJ was on the panel last night. I saw him over at Jay. He was on the desk, looking good, feeling good, after a big Leaf win last night. He joins us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. What's happening, Johnny?
What's going on, Hazy? Now, you would have had a good night's sleep because although you're at the studio late, you weren't coming back from downtown at the rink late, so that probably shaved a few minutes for the end of your night. So that's probably well rested for you today after a long day yesterday.
Absolutely.
I would imagine.
Oh, loving it, man. I could ride this wave forever. There's nothing better
why
than
don't you
playoffs.
stick to the same routine, though? Like, I'm doing some superstitious things. Our boy, Donnie Nichols.
Yeah.
I message, we message every game day, 1, 2. I said, make sure Saturday we talk.
Okay.
And he
so
said,
you're superstitious, all right.
Oh, he said FaceTiming. I said, I'm not FaceTiming. We haven't done that. We're just
you
messaging.
can't do that. You can't do that. I'm going to be in the building in the future. I mean, it's going to happen. But it doesn't – right now there's no reason to even talk about that, right, Johnny? Because
why would you want people hating you, though?
Why would they hate – why wouldn't you be happy the Leafs got through, right?
No,
if you're a Leaf fan and they get through, imagine being
ask
like,
Johnny.
I hate
Johnny's
this guy.
a smart guy. Johnny, do you think the fan base, if they get through this, Florida Game 3, this guy shows up, do you not think there's going to be some hatred involved there?
Of course, but it would be completely irrational and ill-placed.
Yes.
It's ridiculous. But that's the nature of fans for sure. But I think the prudent play would have, I told Hayes yesterday, he should have flown to Boston, snuck in the building, and not announce that he was there until they won. If they lost, he just slips out undetected. If he wins, it's a live stream from the TD Garden after the game. That way he'd get carte blanche any game he wants to go to the rest of his life.
That's a
That would
great
be the
call.
play.
That's a great call.
He should have carte blanche. This is, this is insanity what we're talking about, right? He should be able to go to games.
But I wasn't there though, and they did happen to win. I mean,
you're right.
What else to say?
I would love, honestly, and I know we're just having fun with it, but I would love, like, in the scrum tomorrow morning, Mark Masters to go. Bryan Hayes wasn't in the building. What do you think? To Morgan Riley,
you'd lose your credentials immediately.
Like they're in a huge scrum, and they like, what do you make of Bryan Hayes took one for the team and stayed home and didn't come to the game, and they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah.
I think it's awesome, and I did
Is it
see
awesome? It doesn't sound like you think it's so awesome, but what are you going to do, Noodles?
I think it's awesome. We're having fun, but I'm saying You deserve, if they get through, you have to be in the building game.
I deserve to be in the building. Yes, you're right.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
It's ridiculous.
Well, they got to get through first. And, Johnny, where does your head go first when you start, breaking down what could happen tomorrow night?
Feels a lot like last night, right? We talked about it yesterday that the Leafs, if they're going to be successful, it's going to be low scoring, low event, tight checking, tight margins. They won't be up by a lot. They'll have to win 2-1, 3-2. Exactly what they did. That Joseph Wall will have to be fantastic. Good starts, playing with the Leafs. All the same stuff they've done the last couple games, they would have to do again. And if they do that, I think they have a great chance, as good a chance of winning as losing. I don't think there's an underdog even in the game tomorrow night. It's basically a pick'em game. I think the start will be paramount for the Leafs. For the Bruins, I think they, at this point, are probably feeling pressure as well. I think they might be feeling that they need to change something, while the Leafs are looking like, let's just replicate what we just did. We've done it twice. Can we do it 3 times? Can Joseph Woll play that way one more time? Whereas I think Boston would be looking, okay, how do we get Pastrnak unlocked? Who's playing on defense? Is Grzelcyk in? Is it Shattenkirk? Is it Woll? I think they will be looking to make, thinking about making adjustments more so than the Leafs, which probably is advantage Leafs at this point. But beyond that, it's Game 7. We all probably thought it was going to go to Game 7. But I think what we've seen to this point is that if the Leafs are going to win, it's going to be low scoring and it's going to be tight.
Johnny, what would you do with the power play? My suggestion was, I think to the core, Mitch Marner would be the best guy on the power play, just the way he's operated his whole life on the power play. I sit down and say, how do you want to set this up for Game 7? You tell me and we'll make it work. A crazy fan wrote in and said they would do William Nylander, but I said Marner. Which would you pick?
I would bring them both in and collaborate, because that's the kind of coach I am. I would have everyone.
Collaboration.
I would have
remix.
everyone involved. Yes.
Okay.
So, the power play is an issue. Everyone knows it. At this point, I think the Leafs have sort of come to grips that it sucks right now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't think if they're not counting on the power play. I don't think they're going in tomorrow night and, you can do your X factors and you'll say power play. They're like, it's not even on the board for the Leafs. It's just inconsequential. If they happen to score a power play goal, brilliant. That's a bonus. But they're not counting on that being a difference maker. I think that ship has sailed for this series. They just don't have it together. The pressure that Boston's putting on them, they just don't have it right now. So, they're going to try to get it done 5-on-5. But I would, it's so cliche. I'm loath to even say it. But, if you're really struggling, if you can try to simplify, and maybe, you're talking about changing personnel occasionally, get guys out there that play more like 5-on-5. They're not, spreading out and looking to isolate. They're going to scrum it up, get 2 guys in on a board battle, get to the point, hammer it down to the net, bang away. It can't be worse. It can't be less effective, right? It can't be more of a momentum kill, because that's all they've ever had with doing it the way they're doing. Maybe there's something in that you could explore, just a change in mindset, even if it's not a change in personnel, or maybe a little bit of an adjustment in personnel as well. Get Matthew Knies out there. He's winning board battles, right?
Michael Camilleri just texted me, Johnny. He texted me in the last commercial, and he said, someone's got to make a dangerous skill play, be comfortable enough to make something happen. So that's a different way. He was obviously a fantastic power play player.
Sure.
So that's a different way to look at it. It's either get it in the corner and grind it along the boards or be comfortable to make that play.
Yeah, but I don't think, like, you can say be comfortable, but don't you think that's what the guys who have been out there have been trying to do? They have been trying to make skill plays. Like, this is what they do. This is why they're on the power play. This is why they're great, is that they're trying to make plays under duress, making skill passes, finding seams, over sticks, through bodies, whatever it might be. They haven't been able to do that. So, yes, I agree with Mike. I covered him scoring lots of goals in the power play. He's a fantastic player. But they've been trying that, and it's not working. So that would be option one, but option one doesn't look like it's going to happen right now. So maybe you explore option two, or maybe just keep rolling it, because at the very least, like, you don't change your rotations. Like, whatever's going on right now with the team, like, when they get a power play, these are the guys that go out there. And then when the power play's over, these are the guys that go out there. And that's been the same for most of the series. That's been the same the last couple of games with Austin Matthews out. And that, presumably, you would want to be the same for Game 7.
Johnny, what did you make of Jim Montgomery's comments towards Pastrnak? We were talking about that, before you came on.
I don't mind it. I mean, I think if you're the kind of guy who would wilt at that commentary, then you're probably not the kind of guy that they can count on to be money in Game 7. And Pastrnak doesn't strike me like the kind of guy who'd have a problem with it. Like, he'll take it, he'll absorb it. He probably won't love it, but maybe it's a chip on his shoulder. Maybe he just does what he does. But I don't think it's going to throw him back at all by shining a spotlight on the inconsistent production or inconsistent level of play in his game. He's so good that the expectations are so high that you're saying that. And the reality is, if it's not Marchand and Pastrnak, and I guess McAvoy, who is it? Because Zacha and Coyle, who I think are both good players, they've been super quiet. DeBrusk has power play goals, but at 5-on-5, who else looks dangerous? If it's not going to be one of those two guys, who's it going to be? So I don't mind it, because I think Pastrnak seems to be wired, and he's talented enough that he's like, all right, go ahead, say what you want. I'll do my thing, and I'll show you. I don't think it's a big deal.
With Mike Johnson, our TSN Hockey analyst, I referenced your Leafs in '99 against the Flyers in that first round. Feels very familiar with the way the last two games have gone. And to reference the 4 games that you guys won that year, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 1-0. Those were the 4 wins over the Flyers. I'm sure obviously you were playing in it, but are you picking up on similar vibes where it's just, if the Leafs are going to win, they're going to win 2-1, and they're going to hit everything and block shots, and someone's got to show up out of nowhere and get 2 on the board?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because, like, the personality, from what I recall, of that series, it was very, very physical between Philly and Toronto 25 years ago. The personalities of these teams don't strike me as sort of as physical, and yet the games are getting played out exactly the same. And the reason we got through that series is Cujo. Mm-hmm. And every time the game was tight, he would make great saves, like the Coyle save in overtime, like Wool has done, in the last couple games. Like, we got that goaltending for 6 straight games, and then we had just enough of what Mats and Serge
Stumpy.
All we had, and we squeaked by, but we won the tight ones because we had the better goaltending and a real belief that we would find a way. And that's the way the Leafs have sort of played, especially without Austin Matthews. They don't have that singular guy they can turn to and say, please go do it for us because you're that good. So just find a way. Somebody find a way to make a play. If they're going to win, there's a lot of parallels to that series. And the fact that we got through and the Leafs find themselves right there, maybe 1 game away from doing the same.
Well, 3 of them make $11 million. You would think one of them would be qualified to go out there and win you a game. That's
well, Willie did it last night.
Willie did it.
Matthews has. Like, they have 2 of the games they've won. They've had sort of standout individual performances from one of those guys. So, it hasn't been all the time, but I think we know now in this series, nobody's going to be able to create offense easily. Like, nobody's going to be like, oh, wow, look at wide open game. Look how much he had the puck, how many chances he has. It's just not going to happen in the series for either team. So sometimes you got to accept that and make the most of what you can get.
Well, Willie last night, it was interesting watching that first goal he scored. He was doing the old Pat Quinn loop-de-loop at the blue line, last man back, tie game, where, he did that in November a couple times, in January, and he got caught. And, then he'd just go to the bench and be like, all right, well, whatever, who cares, we're playing Columbus. Yet, I give him credit because that takes stones, man. Like we're watching it right now. To make moves like that, I guess Riley had his back, but that's why you are like a special player, because you got the courage to try something that most players wouldn't try.
Yeah, I mean, 10 other forwards on the team dumped the puck in the corner after the first cutback. But I remember doing the game. I think O was right. I think it might have been against Boston. He might have done that against Boston. Like
Frederick went the other way. Frederick
went on a breakaway, yes. And I remember, I think I said it in the broadcast, like, it's a tough turnover. You don't want to make that mistake there. But he does it all the time. I guess you have to live with the one time in 100 he has a bad turnover and it hurts you, because, so many times, because he's willing to make that play and is good enough to do so, good things can happen. And I think it's sort of symbolic of, his game getting back to where it needs to be for the Leafs, where, one, he's got the confidence to pull that off. Like, he's feeling good about himself to do it. And two, like, he's moving well enough to do it. And I think Game 4, his first game back, he wasn't skating as strongly as he usually does. And Game 5, a little bit better. Game 6, every game he's gotten a little bit better. And that's why he's hard to cover. He gets up there. Remember the first half of the year, how many times he had the puck up there just doing whatever he wanted? When he was on that point-scoring streak, he would just take it up there and go anywhere he wanted. And when he skates well, maybe McAvoy can handle him up there. Maybe Lindholm. But I don't think there's another defenseman that wants to close on him at that part of the ice when he has a little bit of time and space and he's moving well. So, yeah, that was gutsy, but it was back to normal, which is positive.
Yeah. Well, tomorrow night, it's it's do or die for both teams. They can literally treat it like a Game 7, which I appreciate, because they can start saying that. They can finally treat it like a Game 7.
We love that one.
We love that one. And FanDuel's got the Bruins as a slight favorite. It's close to a pick 'em. I'm wondering how much of that is based on the Leaf history more than anything else, because the Leafs are 2-1 in that building. If you believe in momentum, obviously the Leafs have it right now. Where are you at with, I guess, the odds, and do you buy that the Bruins should be a slight favorite tomorrow night?
I do, and I don't necessarily think it's got a lot to do with Leaf history, maybe a little bit, but you could also then wash that away with the Bruins history, who did this last year, right? Mm-hmm. So that's an issue as well. I think there's two reasons. One is the historical success of home teams. Not necessarily this series, but generally speaking, home teams better than road teams. And I think the belief in Jeremy Swayman. Now, Woll has been spectacular, incredible, as good or better than Swayman. But if you had to say, for your life, who do you guarantee has an excellent game tomorrow night? You'd probably be a little bit more comfortable saying Swayman. Just a little bit. Just, slightly bigger sample, slightly older, slightly more experienced. And for those reasons, the Bruins would be a very slight favorite.
All right. Well, that's why they play the games. We'll see tomorrow night, Johnny. It's going to be a fun one next week. Win, lose, or draw. We'll see how it all plays out. Enjoy the weekend. We'll do it again soon.
All right, boys. Enjoy the weekend. Have fun watching the game tomorrow night.
It's going to be fun. There he is, Mike Johnson, joining us here on the Maple Toyota Hotline. Yeah, I can remember, I remember where I lived, where I was in 2013. I remember where I was in 18, 19. It's the fourth time in 11 years, Leafs Bruins, Game 7 in Boston. We'll see. We'll see what happens. It's going to be a fun one. You can hear it right here on TSN
Saturday
Radio.
Night. Yeah, exciting Saturday night.
That's the ultimate pressure, boys. It's like it's a lot of fun if you can find a way to play a good game. But, Justin Williams has talked with us about it a bunch. You could make a mistake that sends your team home. Mm-hmm. And that's the pressure you got to deal with. Yeah. And that's where you got to put your big boy pants on and be comfortable enough to do all the small things. And a guy like William Nylander, you got the stones to pull that off in Game 7, where if it goes the other way, you could go home. The whole team, whole organization's done. That's where you see what you got, man. I get chills talking about it. It's awesome. I can't wait for Saturday.
It's incredible. Yeah, and the beauty of it is it's irrelevant what's happened beforehand. It's just when the puck drops, you got 2.5 hours, maybe more, where who's got it and who doesn't. This is the beauty of the buildup of any playoff series. And you got Vancouver, Nashville tonight, Dallas, Vegas, where Vegas is looking to survive, Nashville's looking to survive. And if that happens, we're going to have multiple Game 7s coming up over the next 48 hours or so. Hal Gill will join us into the next hour. We've got some audio and video coming out of the NBA, more coming out of the NHL. We've got Curtis Joseph coming up today. Cujo will join us just after 6 o'clock. Dear Hazy B coming up, too. It's going to be a fun one on Friday. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Jays back in action down in D.C. tonight. Keegan Matheson tweeting out that the Jays will make a call on Sunday's starter in the next 24 hours. And Alek Manoah is an option.
Good. I'd love to see it, man.
Well, I mean, he's going to pitch somewhere on Sunday, as Keegan said. That's what's lined up here. He could start, obviously, in the minors, or it could be with the Jays on Sunday.
Wasn't his last start, Hayes, like a pretty solid, like it looked like a Major League Baseball player again?
Yeah, he looked good. Yeah, he pitched well. I mean, it's difficult to say.
I know, but rip the Band-Aid off, man. Put him in there. Let's see what you got.
But what if he's a gas
What if
can?
he's a mess? They're in such a
See,
bad
guys, here we
place
go
right
again.
now.
We're on
Okay, life
different
coach.
levels.
Tell me what the life coach would do. Alek Manoah to the All-Star game. Life coach.
Sit down, Alec.
No, go like this first. And now you can talk.
We don't do that, man.
Yeah, you do.
Just you're being stupid now. We don't do that.
Okay,
Alec,
continue.
you are one of the best talents in the game on the mound. Go out there and show it. No, dude. Don't stop doing
Continue.
it.
I'm listening.
No, I'm not doing it.
Why? The life coach.
I'm sorry. You're an idiot, and I'm positive. I did not know that you have to pray like that, like you're a monk. That's not what we do.
Okay. You want a crazy monk story? There's a monk story coming out of Thailand right now. Do a little Google search. It's wild.
What?
We got it, yeah.
I'll tell you. I'll maybe tell you later. All right, hour 2 coming up. Our boy Hal Gill. Hal Gill will join us.
A monk in Thailand? What could he be up to?
Yes.
He's up to something.
You know.
He's really up to something. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050
wow.
and on TSN 4.